And with this counselor, I was able to shift from like a victim mentality to a survivor's mentality and be like, hey, this happened to me. It's not okay what happened, but I can't be living in that victim mentality every day because that's what kept me in addiction.
Welcome to Recovering Out Loud Podcast with your hosts, Anthony and Kaleb. In this podcast, our intention is to help the still suffering addict or alcoholic and provide you, the listener, with our experience, strength, and hope. We share real, raw stories of healing, hope, and breaking free. The opinions expressed here are those of the individuals and not any organization. Please help support the channel by following and rating the show. This is the best kind of donation we could receive. So grab a seat, take a deep breath, and let's get loud about healing together. What do I do?
When Anthony's doing something, you know, like he'll be walking and he's like, got to go up 2 flight of stairs or like to something that's not very fun to do, and he's just like,
Like a deep sigh?
like just sounds super pissed about it.
Okay, everyone get comfortable. I didn't notice I do that.
Oh, I noticed.
I believe you, though, because I lived with you for a while. All right.
Wait, is my foot going to be in the way like it was last time?
Oh, my God, bro. Don't fucking get me started on that.
You gotta flaunt the Uggs.
That drove me insane trying to get that foot fucking removed. Ashley. How do you spell your name?
ASHLEIGH.
A-dubs.
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 Oh, yeah, A-dubs. I forgot about that.
I know.
Thanks for coming down, Ashley. We really appreciate it. I know this was a bit of a trek for you. It took you about an hour to get here, but we've been looking forward to having you on for a while now. And
Like a while.
yeah.
I know. I kept R-bombing you guys.
But no, you were to answer. You weren't.
I'm like, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you were honest. You were like, I'm scared. Like, this is hard for you, right?
Yeah.
And it was hard for us too. It gets easier over time, but this is not easy. This is not. We fully understand and realize that. Like, this is not easy for someone to come here on the internet. When I first started this, I literally said to myself, and I said to everyone around me. Well, maybe not everyone around me, but I'm saying it now. Is like, if nothing happened, I didn't care. If it didn't blow up, whatever, I let that go. But I was fully under the expectation that everybody in the world could possibly see this.
Yeah.
Like, as soon as I accepted that and I was okay with it, it became easier because I had to accept that and be okay with that in order to fucking splay my life onto the internet and get vulnerable and get, current and uncomfortable, and because I wanted to help the still suffering alcoholic and I wanted to stay sober myself. Like, that was kind of the point with all of this, right? So
It's nerve-wracking because I'm someone who I'm not a shy person whatsoever, right? But I still remember the first time me and Tony did this. I was nervous to do it, right? Like, there's just something about getting in front of a camera and then we're talking about some pretty hard things to talk about, right? Now we're doing that and we're showing it to the whole world, right? But I don't know, it's very enlightening when you see some of the feedback and you see people like, wow, like I feel the same exact way as you feel.
yeah.
Right? So
Or you get that person reaching out and said, like, I'm going through that too.
Yeah.
Right. And it's not, you don't even need to give advice or anything,
No.
or be some kind of, guru or prophet or anything. It's just like, yeah, I know how you feel. I used to hate myself too. I still do sometimes. But on the other side, I come to love myself because I started working this recovery program where I started helping people, and because I was told to do, not because I wanted to.
Right.
It's not inherent. Like, I don't enjoy, no, I do enjoy it, but I don't. So my first thought is not like, go help somebody, right? But when you do, it's like, oh, my problems kind of disappeared for an hour when I was doing that.
I want to mention something very interesting really quickly before Ashley tells us about her lovely self. But I was at a fellowship last night with a group of people around for having supper, right? And one of them said he has about a year and a half sober, and he said the last 2 months he hasn't been helping anyone, like taking anyone, and trying to like so-called sponsor them. And he's like, man, the last 2 months I've become a complete asshole. He's like, I've had like no compassion for people relapsing. I'm falling in old habits, right? Not necessarily using drugs, but he said 2 months ago was the last time I sponsored someone. He said for the last 2 months I've just been like living a regular, so-called regular life. So I found that was very interesting to say, like, helping someone actually does keep you sober. And when you stop helping someone and you kind of get right out of the mix of it, it's easy to become that old person again.
And your problems just get bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
And you're thinking about them all the time, and you're that's all you can think about, right?
Yeah.
So, Ashley, it's so lovely to have you. I
Thanks for
appreciate
having
you
me.
coming down here. Yeah, you have a great recovery program, and I just, before we get into it, I want to talk about how we met. We met in a treatment center, not too long ago, and I'll never forget this. Kaleb and I were already there, and we saw you walk in, and we were like, oh, young person, like. Yeah, this is great, right? Because, anytime you see a young person and then it's a girl and you're all excited and, I want to get to know them and hear their story and help them. And that first conversation we had, we were smoking a cigarette, remember? And I was like, when we first met you, I was like, I don't know if we're going to like this girl, right? I was like, I don't know. She's like making fun of us. And like, I dug it, right? But she was chirping us. And I was like, fuck her. What the hell?
I met Ashley. I remember you were going through your detox phase.
I remember this.
And you're outside with the nurse having a smoke, because when you're in detox, you can't leave without the nurse, right? And I went outside and I didn't have any smokes. And I was like bitching. I'm like, I don't have any smokes right now. And now she's like, here you go, bro. Have a smoke. And you had some like pajama pants on. And it was
your hood up. You were all scared. And
I came out with like 2 nurses holding on to me. And I'm like, I'm sorry, guys. This is my first impression.
That's right.
Yes, it was that.
You were on like your detox medication,
and you were the first person to say hello.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
He was. Yeah. He did that a lot.
Yeah. And actually, he inspired me to carry that on throughout the rest of my stay.
Yeah. Because I remember how that felt of somebody saying, hey.
Yeah, it just makes me feel like...
It's just so simple, right?
Yeah.
Like, hey, I was like, whoa, he's noticing me, right?
Yeah. No, it definitely helps when you first get there.
So tell us a little bit about yourself, Ashley. Tell us a bit in a general way, what you were like in active addiction. What kind of happened to bring you down to a point where you didn't want to go on using anymore, and then what you're like today.
Well, yeah, I'm Ash. I'm 23 years old, and I've been suffering with alcohol addiction for 6 years, and cocaine addiction for about 1.5 years. Lots of trauma throughout my life. My birth parents were both addicts, and that was the primary reason to why we were rehomed by CAS. So getting put into foster care definitely gave me a lot of abandonment issues and a lot of loneliness and pain that I didn't really work throughout my life. And then growing up, I dealt with a lot of abuse from men, specifically older men. At 14 years old, I was groomed online sexually by an older man, and the cops got involved, and it was linked to trafficking. So that was definitely hard. And then again, just kept suppressing the trauma. 16 years old, I was groomed by another man and had sexual relations with this person. And that was the first time ever doing that. So that gave me a lot of pain, like shame and guilt. But again, I kept suppressing it, and then got into some abusive relationships later on in life, and ultimately it destroyed me. And I ended up trying to take my life January 13th, 2025, and that was when I realized I was like rock bottom, because I'd been struggling with mental health for a long time before that, but the drugs helped me get through it because I was self-medicating. So during that time, I was put under a 72-hour hold and basically found my spark again and felt like I got my second chance, because I tried to OD on my antidepressants, and cocaine actually saved my life. So kind of interesting how it was the one that ruined my life but also saved my life. Yeah, so that's what happened and what was going on during active addiction. What was the next question?
Like, what are you like today?
I'm so much better. I'm stable mentally. I'm able to be there for family and friends. I find genuine joy out of, working the fellowship and being around people, whereas before I would always say, like, oh, I hate being around people. But I was, like, unconsciously isolating myself because I hated who I was. And because I didn't feel confident being around other people, like, the insecurity kept me away from being around people, so I didn't feel insecure, if that makes sense.
No, it makes sense.
Yeah. So I love being around, people and hanging out with friends. I go to work every day. I get sleep every night. I'm just doing much better mentally and healthy. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. That's really powerful.
I always admire when someone comes and talks about, like, especially because it's usually females that talk about, like, being sexually abused, but, like, I can't imagine that being an easy thing to talk about.
It's
Especially
not
in front of a camera, right? Like that's.
I've suppressed that for a long time. I actually tried to forget about it. Both those things that happened. And I don't like consciously think about it every day. It'll pop in here and there when, different feelings and emotions come about. But I didn't really grasp the danger of both those situations and what could have happened.
Yeah.
And now as an young adult, just thinking back to those times, it just, it kind of makes me feel sick.
Yeah.
Because I was a child.
What was the moment for you where you were able to, like, how did it happen? How did you bridge the gap between going through it and then speaking about it and getting yourself out of it?
Honestly, that all happened at can I say Freedom?
Yeah.
Freedom.
For sure.
The rehab center. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you hadn't really told anybody about it until that point.
No. I've never told anyone about the sexual relations with when I was 16, and my parents actually had to get involved when I was 14 with that, so they know about that. But
the other one you didn't tell anyone? Wow.
So I've lived with that for a while, and it was definitely weighing on me.
What kind of gave you the space to share that? Like, was it being in the rehab? Was it the counselor you were with? What kind of gave you the space?
I think it was the counselor I was with. I mean, obviously, being groomed and abused by men for most of my younger years, I grew like a codependency towards men and like seeking their validation and equating that to my worth, which was not healthy at all. And with this counselor, I was able to shift from like a victim mentality to a survivor's mentality and be like, hey, this happened to me. It's not okay what happened, but I can't be living in that victim mentality every day because that's what kept me in addiction.
Can I ask you something? So something I find common when women talk about this, like when you were going through this in like, your adolescence, did you feel at any point like it was almost normal?
Oh, 100%. It was definitely normalized. And, back then, online safety wasn't really talked about as much as it is now. So I was a teenager, but I didn't understand that this was wrong because being adopted and having to grow up really fast, like I was a caregiver to my brother because my parents were neglecting us because they were prioritizing their drug use. So I grew up really fast and I was always around adults who were like, oh, you're so mature. And like, that's how the grooming starts, right?
Yeah.
Like, you're so special, you're different. So I surrounded myself with older people because like I didn't get along and I couldn't relate. I shouldn't say get along. I couldn't relate to people my age. So that's when I started to isolate from my peers and strictly start looking for older people to validate me because, again, that's all I knew.
I can really relate to that codependence thing. It's not at all like what you went through, but from a codependence, I always try to look for the similarities in stories, right? It's very easy to like hear someone's story and be like, oh, I wasn't that bad, or I'm worse, or right. But I always try to look for the similarities, and it's in the feelings that I find those similarities. And for me, codependence, I still struggle with it today. It's simply, I need you to like me to feel good about myself, right? So this people-pleasing thing comes in where I don't want to upset you because then I get upset and I don't feel good about myself. I don't feel worthy. I don't feel a part of, right? So I'll do whatever it takes to make you like me in order to feel good about myself.
100%. Right? And I struggle with the same thing because, I mean, growing up in the environment that I did at such a young age, I didn't develop like those skills to create an identity for myself. I basically morphed into something for someone else. So it was really hard for me to find my own identity and self-worth and figure out who I was because I had to take care of other people. So that was a struggle, and I definitely needed other people to validate myself.
Something I find like really cool about this, and especially with Ashley, because like I was in treatment with you, and I remember when we would do like, some of these classes that we did, you were like so invested in asking questions, and you like asked so many questions, and like you really, I don't know who you were before I met you, but I know now like you sound so self-aware, like, you know what I mean? You're like, well, this is how I felt, this is what I was going through, this is why I did this, right? Like there's no way that you could have known all these things before you seek professional help, right? And I always go back to that when someone asks like, what's helped you the most? I think right from day one when I started this whole thing, I think it was getting professional help and talking to someone who opened me up a lot. But I think that's very cool because, like, when you sit here and talk now about your past, like, you're very aware of how you felt, why you felt that way.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think that part to me is really cool. And especially with you, Ashley, because I vividly remember, like, you would ask so many questions. Your
Yeah,
hand
you
would,
saw me at the beginning too.
yeah, right? And you were like, oh, but I want to know about this. I want to know about this. And I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
And you weren't, it seemed to me too, I agree with that 100%. It's a good point. It seemed to, and we were talking about this outside too, is like, there's no stupid questions. That's such a cheesy old thing to say, but if there's something going on in my mind, and this is, getting current as well, if there's some kind of idea or plan of how to handle said problem, because we all have problems in our life, right? It's how we navigate them and how we view them. If I think that a question is stupid and I'm scared of how I'm going to be received,
Mm-hmm.
that's the worst place. That's how I relapsed every single time. Is I had this idea of how to solve my pain, and I wasn't going to tell anybody about it, bounce it off anybody, because it was the right idea.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I hear you guys asking questions like, or telling me about your feelings, or you were talking about last night, I really wanted to have a beer, right? I really wanted to have a beer. That is so hard to do. To, like, I'm in recovery, I'm healing, I'm doing better now. People see you, they're congratulating you, you're doing better. And then to go and say, yeah, but I'm thinking about beer still, right? It's so hard to do,
100%.
but it's so beneficial.
Because, I'll use that as an example, right? So I went out last night with a friend, and, there was a beer involved. And, like, I was just watching the other person have a beer, right? And I thought about it last night. I'm like, fuck, like, I could just have a beer right now. Nothing bad's going to happen. This is what I'm telling myself. And then I woke up this morning and I thought about it again, right? And then I seen Ant this morning, and we talked about
It was the first thing you said to me.
Yeah.
I love
right?
that.
And it's like, even if like, just for like a primary example, let's say I said that to you and you're like, that's a stupid idea, don't do it. Yeah. Well, sometimes it's not even so much for your response, it's just me saying it out loud, right? And then, once you say it to one person and you say, oh, it's not that bad, then you talk to a few other people about it. And we were talking about it earlier, like, all of us, I do that lots. Like, I call Anthony every day, and sometimes it's just like, hey man, like some stuff happened yesterday with work, and I didn't get paid. Guy didn't pay me, right? And it drove me nuts. I had lots of shitty things going through my head, and I called Anthony about it, right? And if I wouldn't have called Anthony and a few other people about it, I don't know, I might have done something stupid, right? I might have lashed out and done something dumb to get myself in trouble. But just talking about it with people, and people, like, just basically just listening to me rant, essentially, right? And that's what the beautiful part about recovery is like, I never had those people in my life before. Nobody wanted to be around me. Now I can call people, and they pick up the phone, and they give me the time of day to listen to me, and they don't say, hey, you're an idiot for thinking that way,
or you should fucking kill that guy.
Yeah, or
like, I had people like that, right?
So did I know right now, if this would have happened, like, say 6-7 months ago, like, I know that I would have called, a couple people that I would have been around, and they would have had some lovely ideas on how to deal with that problem. And when I say lovely, I'm being sarcastic. You know what I mean? Something stupid would have happened. But now I have people in my life that, A, are there for me, but B, will hold me accountable and be like, no, man, like, don't do that. You're better than that. Yeah. Let's do it this way. Let's do it that way, right?
Or they play it out with you, too. Yeah. What I try to do is, like, what would happen if you did do that? If you were to, respond, retaliate, what would that look like? And then you start to play it out in your head. You're like, yeah, I might get shot. I might get stabbed. I might get into a fight and win the fight, and then I don't feel good after.
No.
Like, nobody wins, right?
No.
So, being young in recovery is difficult, and I want to try to transition into that because I came in at 23. You're both 23, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And I know exactly what it's like. We were talking about this today too. We tend to think in these, like, long patterns of, and for me it was my whole life, like, man, I don't know how I'm going to get married and not drink. Like, I couldn't grasp that idea. And I thought, and I used to share about it with people in recovery. And it just, over time, I didn't drink on my wedding day, which was a fucking miracle. And I had the best time of my life, and it all worked out. But in the moment, you're like, I can't see myself down the road not ever drinking again because it wasn't really that bad. Or maybe I could get away with it, or maybe I can control it. And it's such a dangerous thought. But I find that this one day at a time thing that they talk about, this 24 hours, just don't drink today. Just don't drink today. And then when tomorrow comes, just don't drink today. Just don't drink today. And that's worked out for me. What kind of helps you in recovery today that is saving your life?
Honestly, the one moment or one day at a time thing definitely saved my life a couple of times, dealing with some emotions over the past few weeks that came out of nowhere. It's, again, just putting in my mind, just don't drink tonight, because it's really hard to look at a couple days or a week. And going to bed and not drinking and then waking up sober is the best feeling, because my night could have turned out so much differently. And that's where like the addiction behavior comes into play. It's really just a mental battle, fighting your brain every day, because your brain's trying to convince you that you need these substances when you don't. So that's helped. Also the fellowship, all the friends that I've made. I reached out to Tiffany last night and basically said, like, I'm having a really hard time. Like, I am thinking about using. And I had an addictions counselor when I was in the hospital actually mention that it takes 15 to 20 minutes for your brain to not think about a substance. So if you call someone every time or text someone every time that you're having a craving, for around 15, 20 minutes, you actually get your mind off of it. And then you're not thinking about it anymore. So that was a good advice that I got. And yeah, just self-care too. Getting outside, not staying in my bed all day, keeping me busy, really helps, so that when I go into my room, I'm not lingering in my thoughts. I just hit the pillow and pass out.
Yeah. Where does family kind of play a role in this? Like your support system, people that aren't in recovery, how does that look?
That aren't?
People that aren't in recovery, like family or we call them normies. It's kind of a weird thing, but people that...
Oh, I see what you mean. Okay.
Yeah. Where does that play into your life? How does that... what does that look like for support?
So my dad was a major support system for me during my mental health crisis, and also going away to a treatment center. He basically redid my entire room when I got out of the hospital. Yeah, because I was in the basement and it was unfinished. So before I had like brown dark walls, and when I got out of the hospital, I know, because he put up, sorry.
No, don't be saying it's hilarious.
Well, because he put up plywood as like fake drywall,
Yeah.
Just because we weren't going to do a massive renovation. But he painted it brown, so it was dark and dingy down there, right? And it had curtains up, and it was just really dark. Cause
it's a perfect place to use. Like,
yeah. No, it's kind of funny the way I explained it.
Yeah. But he redid it.
He redid it, so he painted it all white. So when I got out of the hospital,
so nice.
he redid it, because he's like, I want you to have something bright, all that. And then I went away for treatment, and then I came back and he redid my entire room again. He put vines and like it looks incredible.
That's so nice.
Yeah, because I was struggling to do that during active addiction, because I would start something and not finish. Right?
I know nothing about that. There's that laugh I love. I was hoping for that.
No, it's fun. I know it's kind of like off topic in a way, but like I'm just thinking about this as I listen to you guys. It's crazy how people change when they get sober. Mm-hmm. As I remember meeting both of you guys when you guys both come in, right? And I don't know if you've seen the picture I put in the group chat of what I look like.
I know, I'm so proud of you.
But like, I'm going to post that.
Yeah, like, you know what I mean?
I thought he did.
No, like on this podcast,
so
that you can get some context. It's a great photo.
Like, I'm just gonna be straight up with you. Like when when I first met you, like you were a dick, buddy. You walked in miserable. You know, you didn't want to be there. I remember we were watching what show we were watching on the couch. We were watching some stupid show. All I remember, man, is you were miserable and like you did not want to be there, right? And within a couple of weeks, I really met Anthony at like week 3, right? I didn't meet Anthony for the first few weeks. I don't know who you were. And same with me. I could imagine who people for the first month got of me. They just seen this destroyed version of myself, right? And then when I met you too, like you didn't even want to stay there for the first week, I think, right? You wanted to leave.
I was having a hard time.
Right? And then now, like, you know, months later,
it saved my life.
It's crazy having this conversation. Like it's beautiful.
It's so beautiful, man.
And seeing this stuff, like it's almost like it never gets old. Like you know how using drugs gets fucking old after a while. This stuff never gets old. Like
you're right. It's a good way to put it.
And like I'm gonna use another example. Our boy Michael. Like you know when I met that guy.
Mikey.
You know what I mean, Mikey, man. Like I remember when I met him, I was like, oh boy, like. The counselor's got a job here, and now look at the guy.
He was so angry when he came in.
So angry, right? He and it was sad. I remember listening to him sometimes and watching him go through what he was going through, and I was just like I felt very graceful and grateful that like I wasn't going through that. Mm-hmm. And I will keep it 100%. I didn't know if he was gonna be able to like get through it, right?
I know we were worried for him, right?
And now look at the guy.
Yeah, he's a totally different person.
So beautiful.
The happy, joyous, and free. You can like see it in his eyes and in his face, and that's what's happened with you.
And I remember when I did my intake, when I went to treatment, the nurse was talking to me, and I forget what I had said about. I said like, oh, like you guys have a hard job or something, whatever. We were talking about their job, and she said, my favorite part of my job is seeing the person in a month. Mm-hmm. And like I couldn't imagine, because like they see people change not everyone, unfortunately not everyone makes it, right? But for the people that go in there the first day, like, you know, looking like we looked and feeling like we felt, and then seeing them a month later, right? Like, it's got to be like just, it makes the job all worth it,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because some days I couldn't imagine, you know, being a counselor or being a nurse in a treatment center or just in a hospital in general and seeing someone come in messed right up and you're thinking like, holy crap, like, you know, look at what this person's going through. Are they ever going to get better? Will they ever change? You don't even know who they are. Like I said, when I met you, I didn't meet you. When I met you, I didn't meet you. When people met me when I first went in there, that was not me at all, right? And then when you actually get to know the person for who they are and see what they're like when they're not all messed up on substances, it's like just, it's beautiful, man. It's so beautiful.
Yeah.
I agree.
I always say the best part about recovery for me, and I experienced this, I haven't been able to directly experience this again yet, but in the 7 years that I had, you know, a part of my recovery program was mentoring other people and, you know, being there for their phone calls and answering, you know, one of the greatest things ever. And Jay talked about this last time in our podcast, where watching someone, you know, from ground zero, the like lack of hope, faith, anything, lack of personality, lack of soul, really, transform over time. And then having them just, you know, I was sitting with a guy one time and we were going through recovery work and he just started, you know, bawling his eyes out, like right in the middle of the thing. And it wasn't like a sad cry. It was like, I can't believe I was there and now I'm here.
Yeah.
And it's just this like moment of gratitude.
And
right?
and I'll say, like, everyone's got a different gift in life, but Anthony, like, you, one of your gifts, bro, and I love this about you, is like, I got lots of friends, and like, let's say I'm going through, say, like, I make lots of stupid jokes sometimes that aren't really funny.
You never.
Yeah, right. So like, you know, let's say I call Anthony and make a dumb joke about like, oh, I'm gonna kick this guy's ass, or oh, I'm gonna go to the bar and have a beer, just a stupid, not funny joke. Anthony will not sit there and feed into it. He'll be like, no, and he'll mentor me through it, and he'll say something serious, right, to the point where it almost annoys me, where I'm like, just shut up and laugh. But he tells me what I need to hear, right? I think that someone like yourself, especially having 7 years in the program, like, you must have helped so many people, man. And it's honestly, I love you, buddy, but like, that's one of my favorite things about you.
Thanks, man.
You don't let me fall in the rabbit hole of making jokes, because you made a comment to me earlier, which is so true. There's truth behind every single joke you make, right? So I appreciate that about you, man.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Yeah, and that's everything that I've ever said out loud that's ever been of any, you know, importance or any depth and weight has come from somebody else, and I've just kind of recycled it.
Yeah.
And that's what we do here, is like we hear these things, you know, one day at a time, live and let live, these like recovery slogans, sayings, faith over fear, you know, one day, like I said, all these recovery sayings, and we just like recycle them to people. And, you know, they're slogans, they're sayings, they're whatever for a reason, you know, because they work, right? And sometimes we hate them, but you know, you never know when you're gonna, I always say this too, is like, you never know when you're gonna say something that'll save someone's life.
Yeah.
So, you know, just go out and on a limb, and I always try to not tell people what to do, because it doesn't work, right?
You say that to me all the time.
We're defiant people.
When I call Anthony and talk to him about it, talk to him about whatever I'm going through, he'll give me some advice, but he'll always end it with, I'm not telling you what to do, but
yeah.
right? And no, it's good, it's true, because I get something from that, because when you say, let's say you were telling me what to do, I'm gonna be like, well, fuck, I'm not doing that. You're telling, you know, like when someone tells you something to do, like, you know what I mean, like it almost pisses you off and rubs you the wrong way. But when someone says that, like, you really take it with a lot more respect. Like, okay, you're not telling me to do this, but this is what you did, and you know.
I think it brings us from a place of like, I'm better than you,
Yeah.
to, hey, we're on the same page,
Yeah.
and this is what I did,
Yeah.
and attraction, not promotion. I'm not promoting any ideas, or I try not to. I'm simply living my life, and hopefully people will be like, hey, I want what you have, right? Because that's what happened to me when I came in. I found a guy and a bunch of guys where I was like, I want what they have. What do I have to do? And they told me, you know, you don't have to do anything, but here's what we did, right? So you mentioned, you know, being young in recovery. What do you do for fun in recovery? I know that like a common misconception when people come in here is they're like, my life is over. I had this too. I'm not gonna be able to do this. I'm not gonna be able to do that, because you lose a lot of, you know, Jay talked about it last time. You lose a lot of friends, or hopefully you lose a lot of using friends, and I don't mean to death, but like you kind of cut them out, and your priorities kind of change, and you have to find new things to do. Like, and I found that I could do most things that I did in active addiction sober and still have fun if I liked them. Going to music festivals was an example. I love dancing, and I learned how to do that sober, right? So what does fun and recovery look like to you, and how do you get past that? You know, how am I going to not drink and do this, or use and do this?
Yeah, so speaking of that, that was really hard for me to do as soon as I left treatment, because everything I did for the past 3 years revolved around drinking. Like, no matter what it was, I was drinking. So it was kind of triggering to do certain things, like go out for dinner or go to like an arcade or something, because I needed alcohol, especially alcohol, to be able to actually leave the house because I wasn't confident in myself. So after I left treatment, it became easier because I gained that confidence in being able to go out there sober. So I'm able to do, like, I go to the rec room.
I love that place. Yeah.
Yeah, but it was hard for me at first because like I needed substances to be able to socialize. But I've been able to shift that mindset into like, I don't need that. I'm perfectly fine the way I am, and I'm even better sober. I'm not a good person when I'm drinking. I don't want to do anything.
Me too.
That was great. Yeah.
Well, because you think that you're like hot shit, right?
Yeah.
But I realized like I didn't even do anything when I was drinking. I would just like slump in a freaking couch or a chair and like not socialize.
Yeah.
I thought that I was socializing with everybody in the room, but like
Yeah.
I wasn't a person when I was drinking and doing drugs. But I actually have a personality now, and I have like that genuine joy. You know what I mean? So I'm still able to do stuff. I go for walks, hikes. I love nature. I find that's very therapeutic in itself. Yeah, hanging out with friends.
Yeah, I think you make a lot of good points there. You talked about perception, and that's what being sober does. Is it forces you to, calling someone, all these things that we talked about. It just forces you to look at things from a different angle, and shift your perspective. And that's kind of the point of recovery. To what I found today is, I'm just trying to alter my perception like every day. It's not black or white. It's not this way. It's not boring. It's not fun. Like, it could be a multitude of things, right? And if I look at, I always ask myself, what's my motive behind this? But if I go out to the rec room, say, and it's a great example because there's lots of drinking there.
Yes.
But there's also lots of people just not drinking and having
And there's
fun.
lots of kids. Like,
yeah. And there's a lot of people not drinking
Yeah.
and having a great time. And yeah, you make a good point. It's almost like you have to revisit your childhood and like live like a kid again, where you're like, I don't care what other people think about me. Nobody is looking at Ashley and saying, that girl's not drinking. Like, what a fucking loser, right? Like, and if they are, that's their problem. Like Jay said last time, it's not my problem. Like, that's their problem. They're uncomfortable with me not drinking. I'm going to let them work on that. And I'm just going to be Ashley and be Anthony and be myself. And, I'm going to attract the right kind of people anyways.
Yeah.
So have you had to cut off any of those old friends? And what was that like?
So actually, I got to a point where I had isolated myself in my past relationship, so it was just me and this person that was doing it together mostly. But I wasn't doing it with anyone. I was mainly in my room alone, isolating myself. So thankfully, I didn't have to worry about that. And my family doesn't drink. My friends don't drink. And if they do, they can actually handle it. And they're not.
Doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
It literally doesn't. It just pisses me off.
I had to cut off someone recently because I think they're going through that. They slipped a few weeks ago. So that was tough. But, I have to prioritize myself and my sobriety. And, I learned I can't fix people. That was a major thing that was holding me back, was trying to fix other people who didn't want the help. And it's sad. But
how did you cut that person off? Because that's hard, right? How did you get to that point? I know you battled with that for a while because you called me and talked to me.
I did, and that was a few weeks prior. I just realized like this person isn't giving me what I need, and I had spoken to him about how he treats me affects me, and how it hurts me, and he still actively made the choice to go and do that. So I came to terms with like, he doesn't really care. Like, if someone who cares about you won't do something like purposely to hurt you or to harm you, and he needs to work on whatever he's going through, and I wish him the best with that. But it's definitely a hard decision to make. But through treatment, I realized like I have to put myself first, because I put others before me for 23 years of my life, and it got me to this point, right?
You mentioned something that I loved, Anthony, and I about being a kid, kind of like being a kid again. Someone commented on one of my photos of my transformation picture, and they're like, "Holy, like there's the kid again," and I feel that so much because, like, the person you see today, like this is what I was like like, obviously I'm more mature and grown up now, right? Like, you know, I have like facial hair and stuff. I'm not a kid anymore. But I'm like the laughy, jokey, happy person that I am. I was not like this from like 16 to like 23. Like I fell in a trap, and I become like, even before like my drug use got real dark. I turned into an asshole, cocky, you know, just like all the horrible things. But like when I was like growing up as a kid, like this is what I was like. And
I
then,
relate to that so much.
you know what I mean? And I remember, like, I said this lots to people. I'm like, this is this is what I was like when I was a kid. So like being sober, like, and it doesn't make me a kid again. And what it does is it just makes me myself again. You know what I mean? Like, truthfully, through and through myself. Like, even before I started using hard drugs, I was smoking pot every single day. And I'm not saying pot is a hard drug. People struggle with marijuana badly out there. But for me, it didn't do to me what other drugs did. I was still somewhat being able to function for a few years before, you know, it got bad. But still, when I started smoking weed every day, it numbed me out. I wasn't myself, sat in my house, and I wasn't who I am right now, right? And then it went from weed to, you know, alcohol to harder drugs, like really hard drugs. And I completely lost myself, like completely. I become a completely, like, I didn't do a 360. I did like a 1080, like, you know, no, like, seriously, like, I become a complete and utter different human being, right? Like, so different. And it took a long time. It took like not until the end of treatment that I really start like being that person again, right? And I was in treatment for 3 months, so I'm saying 2.5, like almost 10 weeks until like I started to get like my spark back, right? And I think that's one of my favorite parts. I say that a lot. So this is my favorite part. That's my favorite part. There's just so many great parts.
There's a lot of gifts,
right? A lot of gifts, right? The promises are amazing in this, and like, no, it's just being yourself again. And like, when you're messed up for so long, like I was messed up for a long time. I forgot who I was. I forgot I even had that in me. I just thought, this is who I am. Fuck everybody else. That was my literal. That was my motive. I was like, fuck everyone else. They don't understand. They have no idea. You know, like, I know what's going on here. That's exactly what I thought. Exactly, through and through. That was my mindset, right? Even at my worst days, I still had something on my shoulder. I don't know what, you know, and it was just like, fuck everybody else. They have no idea.
Yeah. Right? I relate to that. Yeah, because I always said too, even pre-addiction, I was not a person. I was like a shell of a person. I didn't have a personality. I was numb. I was empty inside. And then addiction hit me, and then it made it worse. I have never felt this good about life, like, in so long, ever since being a kid, probably. And so yeah, I relate to that.
And like, I was actually on the phone with my aunt yesterday, and like, I don't want, when you hear people, like, I don't want people to be confused. Like, okay, like, my life is beautiful now. It's being sober is so amazing. But like, sometimes when I hear people say like, oh, like, life is great, I don't have no cravings, I love my life, being sober is awesome, I'm never gonna drink again, woohoo! Like, sometimes I just want to be like, okay, settle down a little bit, right? Like, I don't.
Are you being honest right now?
Like, I don't want to fool anyone out there, especially people like that know me from before and think like, oh my god, like, he just stopped using drugs and now like life is just great.
Yeah.
That's not at all what it is. I mean, it's a huge part of it. Don't get me wrong, but like, I still get stressed out. Like, just like I work a job and I have bills to pay. Like, that stresses me out just like any normal person. Whether you use drugs or you don't use drugs, right? Like, life in general, right? Like, I still struggle with plenty of things. Just basically, I can deal with it now. And before, you use drugs not to deal with it. Yeah. I use drugs to just pretend it didn't exist.
Pretend it didn't exist.
Right? So it's honestly, if anything, maybe it's even a bit more difficult now because I'm actually dealing with these things, but I deal with it like an adult, and I have tools, I have friends, right? I have, like, but I just don't want people to come out, like, watch these videos and be like, he's lying, life's not that great. Like, no, life is, first of all, it is great, but you appreciate these things, right? So that's why we talk about it so much. Yeah. That's why I say, like, oh, like, you just had mentioned my life has never been this good, blah blah blah. It's because you never realized life was good. I never just woke up and was like, oh my god, I can walk to the bathroom and take a pee. Those little things didn't mean shit to me. My mom's calling me, you know, my little brother is talking to me every day. Like, those little things never meant anything to me before. So now when I say life is great, it's because I appreciate all the beautiful things in life. Yeah. But what I'm getting at here is just when I hear someone say that, sometimes I'm just like, you're giving off a phony vibe to me. Don't just say how beautiful it is. Like, life is life. Life is always going to life you, whether you're sober, whether you're, you know, or not sober. But it's just, when I say, and when you say, and I know this because I know you guys personally, that life is great. I know that, like, you mean that, right? But that doesn't mean, like you just said, you're dealing with cutting someone off, you know, you had an emotional connection with. Like, obviously that affected you. You had to, you know, not just, oh, I'm sober, so none of this shit matters anymore. Life is great. No, that's not it at all. but you have tools, you have resources, and you can deal with it now. And you wake up the next day and you still appreciate life.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you don't just like, you know what I mean?
To go along with that, it's a shift in mindset. Instead of being like, oh, I have to answer this phone call, or oh, I have to go see my parents, or oh, I have to go to work. It's I get to do that.
Yes.
We are alive. We are another day clean and sober. We
Yes.
get to do that, and that's what really changed my recovery, is learning that and putting that into place in my life.
Yeah, no, it's true, right? It doesn't mean that you're not still in the trenches every day, right?
Mhm.
Like life is hard, but you're able to see the gifts and be grateful. And I do a gratitude list every morning. It's part of my morning routine where
Mhm.
and sometimes it's coffee and sleep, and other times usually it's relationships, my wife, and just doing it every day. It's like, oh yeah, that is a really good fucking thing in my life too,
Mhm.
We're at a time now where we've kept really close with the people we went to treatment with.
Yes.
We have a WhatsApp group, and we talk to them every day, and it's really positive, and I love it. And it's very raw and authentic too, because people share what they're going through, like you talked about. It's kind of we're seeing people start to relapse, right? And this is it can be a part of recovery. It doesn't have to be a part of recovery. But what I find so admiring about these, we saw it the other day. That
It was
guy,
amazing.
had 2 years, and he relapsed, and he came back in, and he was just raw and emotional. I know from personal experience that it is probably the hardest thing to do in life is to come back into recovery. And I always knew in the bottom of my heart that I was going to come back here if I didn't die. That's the caveat. If I didn't die. But I knew that my life was better on this side.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, it was hard. Sure, it was, the mountain was, a bit steep to climb. But we're at a point now where people are starting to relapse, and I always admire, I was saying, that they're able to come back and admit it, right? It's not easy.
And that's because of this program.
Yeah.
Because
the tools they got.
I said this to you the other day, and this is something I've been noticing lots because it's something within myself. Like, I grew up thinking that a strong man was someone who's tough, fights, doesn't back down, goes to work every day. He's a strong man. Like, that's what I thought, right? For real. And I mean, what I've come to realize from seeing, it's just from, these programs I attend and these people that I'm meeting, like, I have a lot of work to do in myself to become a strong person, because what we seen the other day, I watched this guy, right? Big, burly, strong guy, nice, handsome guy, and he gets up there and right vulnerable in front of, like, there had to have been 30 people there, and he talked about, I had 2 years of sobriety, I messed it up, I went and used, and you could tell he was very shameful about it, right? I don't know if I could actually do what that guy did, you know what I mean? And I think I'm a strong, tough person, but no, when I see these things, I'm like, wow. And I shared to you too that same day. I told him I was at a fellowship program a couple days prior to this, and this guy was getting celebrated, right, for having 1 year of sobriety, and he brought his girlfriend there. And this guy that was getting celebrated was a very timid, shy guy. He didn't even want to do this, right?
Mm-hmm.
People had like said, no, you need to do this, you need to do this. So I meet this guy. I didn't know who he was before, and he brings his partner with him, who is sober. She's not like part of any program or anything, but she come to celebrate him. And this guy was so shy to talk. He didn't, and we're celebrating him, right? But he was still very timid and shy. And when it comes for his turn to talk, it was one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. He gets up in front of probably 40, 50 people, and he's like, he starts it off by thanking everyone for coming, but then he looks at his partner and he says, like, last year, I did something really silly and stupid and I hurt you. And they both immediately start to cry. And he powers through it. He apologizes to her, goes on to thank everyone for coming and helping him get through this last year, the hardest year of his life. And I was sitting there, like, I almost cried. I was like, it's so beautiful to see. And then after we were done, everyone got like a chance to talk to him. And I said to him, I'm like, man, I said the same thing I just said. I'm like, I used to think a tough guy was this, this, and this. But I'm like, seeing you talk shows me I have a lot of work left to do, because I still don't know if I could do those things. Even doing this, like, sometimes it's not easy to just, even phoning you some days and being like, hey man, like, this is, it's, those things aren't things I would have never, ever, ever done. I used to bottle that stuff up inside.
Mm-hmm.
I never talked about it, and I thought doing that was strong. I thought, I don't need to talk about this bullshit. Fuck, you know what I mean? That was my attitude. But it takes great strength inside of someone to get out there, and woman or man, doesn't matter. I don't care about that stuff. I just think for a person in general to talk about, hey, like, just to say that, just to be like,
I was wrong.
I was wrong, right? And when I seen that guy the other day, Anthony, talk like that the other day, I was blown away. I'm like, Like, what a strong person to do that.
Yeah. And it inspires you to do it yourself, right?
100%.
And you
Inspires
said,
to
like,
do it
our
yourself.
group chat, it's sad to see, you know, but it's a reality. I don't look at these people like any less than me
Oh, no.
for
Yeah.
having slip-ups, you know? And when you see the person, you know, go for a few days to a detox, and he comes back, and it's beautiful to see. Because I can't imagine. I don't know what I would do if I went out there and went on a, you know, put a little show on right now and decided to go mess up. I don't know. I don't want to find out, and I hope I never have to do, but I don't know what would happen. I don't know if I would just come back to the group chat and call someone. I don't know. Like, I hope I would.
Yeah.
But like, I just know that can't be an easy thing to do.
No.
2 days after you do it, you go in front of 40, 50 people like that guy did. Opened right up. But what that did was he really put him in a good position to help himself out, because everyone goes up to him and talks to him, and he's there for him.
Yeah.
But when you don't do that, then you're by yourself, and you're going to remain by yourself until you do that.
And
right?
it always gets worse.
It gets
right?
worse and worse, and you get farther away from ever talking about it.
It took me, it's a good point, and I always admire that too. It took me 4 months
To talk about it?
to get back into treatment, right? I wouldn't even talk about it with anyone except for my close family. And no, even that, I was so ashamed because I had all this time before, and I relapsed again for a third time. Here we go again, Anthony. I was so ashamed of what everyone was going to do. And all they did was just fucking support me. That's it. Nobody ever said, you fucked up, you're an idiot. But in my head, that's what they were going to say. I was sure of it. And so it took me 4 months, man. That's why I say, like, getting back and actually getting back into treatment, and finally putting up my hands and waving the white flag and saying, I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. My life was so good. It was hard, but it was so good. And it was so much better than living day to day, looking for the next high, looking for the next fix, you know.
It's never enough.
Yeah. One is never, one is too many, and 1,000 is never enough, right? So, Ashley, what, there's someone out there, I'm sure, that's in an abusive relationship, been through abusive relationships, been through trauma that, similar to yours, maybe going through addiction, but doesn't know what to do. What would you say to that person?
Honestly, I'd say reach out to people. The only way that this program is working for me is when I'm honest and vulnerable about what I'm going through and the emotions and the pain that I'm feeling, because it stops me from using. In terms of an abusive relationship, it's very, very tough to leave. But I saw a quote yesterday, and it was, hopefully I don't butcher this, but no matter what you do, no matter how loving you are, how kind you are, how nice you are to an individual, you'll never be enough for the wrong person.
Wow.
And that hit me.
You did not butcher that. That was great.
Yeah. And I saw that, and I was like, this is coming up right at this, like, the right time for me to come onto this podcast and to, put that out there. Because I had to realize that. It took me 3-4 years to realize that. And I just want to help the next person realize it before, it's too late.
And that's
amazing.
I'm going to say this. It's so hard to talk about, like we've all mentioned a few times. It's hard to talk about, but look at you. You come here today to do this podcast. You were nervous.
Yeah.
You didn't want to do it. You started talking, and it gets easier.
Yeah.
Just anything in life. You just got to do it. Just like going to the gym. Just like anything. It gets easier over time, right? But this specifically, mental health and addiction and abusive relationships. Trauma, like, it's hard to do. It's something you don't want to do. It's something you've never done. But just give it a shot, because it changed my life, and I know it changed your life, and I know it changed your life.
You never know what's going to happen. Right?
And I had to change. I think I told you about this. I had to change the mindset from being selfish and putting I don't want to do this. And it's not about me necessarily. It's about helping the next person. And that's what the fellowship is all about, right? Like, yes, I'm nervous to come up here, but when I'm facing my own fears, I'm proving to myself that I can do something that helps me, but it's also helping another person out there who's struggling, who may not have, or may have gone through the same things. And I just wanted to be that light and be like, you know what? It does get better. And, you don't have to keep living as a victim. You are a survivor, and you will get through this.
I love it. That was well said. Thank you so much, Ashley, for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
We appreciate and love you. Thank you.
Love you guys.
Thanks for listening. Please help us grow the channel and like, share, and subscribe for more content. The discussions and stories shared on this podcast are for informational and motivational purposes only. This content is not a substitute for professional medical advice, addiction treatment, or therapy. If you or someone you know is struggling with addiction, please consult a licensed physician, addiction specialist, or mental health professional. You are no longer alone.